For the love of God, wear pants. We're talking Zoom today. Hey, this is Ben here from JobNimbus with the Building Business channel, and I've got Pierce from Eagleview with me today. Welcome, Pierce. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I want to talk about what's been happening over the last year. We've all seen people work from home for a super long time, and now it's becoming, I think, a more of the norm we're hearing. Do you think that's what the future is?
Yes and no. I think that there was a time when a business could choose whether or not to engage in a remote or their historic, what they feel comfortable with, their direct door, knocking on the door with a homeowner engagement construct. I think where we're at now is we've opened the door for remote as an option, and homeowners now have that option, and they're utilizing that option because they prefer it. And we are going to need to adapt to that new environment. I think that there was a time when there were business people that we've done business with, and this might have been a little while, but they chose to not use email. Hey, call me on the phone. I mean, how many of those people are left, right?
Yeah.
So it's just all about adaptation.
So if the world is kind of changing towards that direction, what are some ways that a company can effectively have a remote workforce? What do you need to have in place to actually do that right?
I think you have to have a mindset change, or maybe it's an adjustment, not a full-out change, right? I think that, and what I mean by a mindset change is it doesn't really matter what you want and what you're comfortable with. It doesn't really matter how you want to engage with the homeowner. Again, it matters how the homeowner wants to engage with you.
Yeah.
So I think that these organizations that just come back and say, you know, I go into the home and I show up at 6 p.m. and I camp out for 2 hours and I go through this educational routine, and that's just how we do things, and that's how I want to engage, and that's how I have the best closing ratios. You might not necessarily have that option, or at least you're not going to have that option with every homeowner. So I think that's number one. It's really important to understand that the homeowner has changed, and over a period of time, which has been led by, you know, the major e-commerce folks that we hear about on the news every single day. But homeowners have been going through this process over the last few years of trading what I call immediate gratification for convenience. Things like convenience are more important than going to the mall and standing in line and getting that pair of shoes today. And they're doing the same with all the services that they need to procure. It's just one of those deals where you end up with homeowners who just don't want to go through that scheduling back and forth of having multiple contractors at their home and having to coordinate between all the other things in their lives if they know that there's another option. And now that we've opened this door to e-commerce, they expect that option everywhere in their lives. And if they don't have that option, they're going to go somewhere where they do.
Okay, so they're really driving big factor there is convenience, it sounds like. That's what you're looking for.
I think so.
In the homeowner's experience.
Yeah.
What about for your employees directly yourself? How do you manage a remote workforce?
So you wanted to get controversial, here goes, right? I think that there's a lot of upsides to managing a remote workforce, or just having one in general. I think that there becomes a degree of flexibility that allows, right? I mean, it's easy to become a slave to Zoom meetings, but that flexibility associated with, you know, being able to step out and take care of something for your kid, or you take care of something at the home, potentially see a roofing contractor in the middle of your day, is a big benefit. I think that there's some significant value in giving back that commute time, right? I mean, how many people are accustomed to traveling 40 minutes each way to work, right?
Effort.
Just totally wasted time. Maybe not 100% wasted if you're doing productive things.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you can, a lot of people would rather be engaged in what they need to be engaged in as opposed to sitting behind the wheel in traffic, right? So I think the downside of remote working is there's a lot of face-to-face interaction and innovation that happens and problem solving, far less distraction. I think in a lot of cases we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, and there's going to be a slowdown in the innovation curve. It's less efficient, harder to get things done.
Yeah, that's one thing I've seen is that it's really hard to bounce ideas, and there's nothing that replaces like a good whiteboard session of trying to work through a problem, and I have not found a good way online. And there's some tools that I've seen, there's some interesting things that get you kind of there, but it's not the same as being in the same room, reading each other's body language, feeding off of that. There's some things that are, I think, a drawback. What do you think is the biggest drawback to this full remote work that we've been seeing? You've been running a big organization this last year doing it. What's one of the biggest drawbacks you guys have had?
It's hands down, it's trust and relationship building. It's when you, especially as you have, when we were in a very extended environment like this, far more than I think far longer rather than I think anyone thought we would be managing this. So just in the normal cycle of business, you're going to have ingress and egress of employees, and as you go higher and higher up the, I call it the leadership hierarchy, and you got to make real strategic decisions and things that potentially have some consequences if you get it wrong. Having that relationship or that trust, that being vulnerable to kind of dial in a little bit more. Double click into some of those issues to make sure that you're doing the right thing. It's harder to build that through Zoom. It really is. It's just tough.
Yeah.
So I mean, we've had to kind of really balance that and maybe take some risks that.
So have you guys found any techniques that work really well for trying to build that trust, even though everybody's at home all the time?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing and this is something that sort of that we kind of figured out early on was, as we entered this remote kind of environment, and I think you probably could recognize this as well. The camera was really optional.
Yes,
it was
the
super
Zoom
optional,
camera was
right?
always off,
It was really optional,
and you almost didn't want to see what was on the other side.
No, you almost
sometimes.
didn't, and I got kind of bumped around for making some comments about that, but it was really an optional kind of camera environment. So I was like, really, you're going to wear that on a Zoom call with your boss? Cool. But over time, I think we've kind of made it a requirement that you really need to turn the camera on, right? I can tell if you're distracted and you're doing 3 other things. Nobody's that great at multitasking, FYI. I mean,
it doesn't really exist if you look at the science behind it.
No,
there's no such thing as multitasking.
No, and so by virtue of having that camera on, it at least draws people in, and it helps people stay connected. And I'd say a second thing is pursuant to that camera and really holding each other accountable on calls and whatnot. To if you're not paying attention, you suspect that, hey, Ben, like here, call him out on it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what's that interesting? What's that interesting right now?
Right.
And then after a while, you can build a little bit of fun into that environment. But it's not easy, and we're not experts at it by any means.
Yeah. So I think remote work kind of is looked at negatively in some ways because it's not what we used to do in the past. I'm really thinking specifically about the contractor and the homeowner, though. Are there some opportunities here with this new remote situation?
I think there certainly are opportunities here. And one of them is that you're going to have a lot less of that one-leg sales call, where you're going to have more opportunities to reach all the decision makers at the home at the same time. It's much easier to get, even if it's one of those decision makers is putting something on hold. It's easy to engage. It's easier to get to a yes and avoid some of that having to come back, to show the other partner a sample board, for example. So I think you can get all that done fully remotely. I also think that even some of the tools that are out there, the visualization tools associated, the being able to show the property in unique ways, show options in unique ways, you can actually guide the process and with less distractions potentially, but just by being able to share your screen and have all of those different options at the ready. I think in a lot of ways the remote environment lends to a higher attach rate and the ability to upsell more effectively, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I love that. There's a little bit of a trust gap though when you're not in the home with the homeowner, right? As a contractor, it probably means that you need to do some more of things like communication. Can you talk to me a little bit about what you think are some of the ways that you need to improve communication when you're remote?
I think that there are, first of all, I think we're improving quantum leaps every day in this space. I think when
It's definitely getting better faster.
when virtual sales kind of started, and I had the opportunity to sit through some of these, it was a really what's the right word? Just a bad process all the way around. This is like
Horrible customer experience.
horrible customer experience. But over time, I think that we've learned how to navigate all of these different tools. We've all become masters at whatever online communication platform you choose. We know how to use all those things. We're fumbling around a whole lot less. I think that there's some best practices associated with just being really prepared and having a plan going into that. There's, ultimately you've got some, hopefully you've got an eagle view on the property. You know exactly what you're going to be talking about. You know how to walk the homeowner through the options. Maybe you've got a second monitor you've set up so that you've got all of the things staged so you can immediately go to it. You're not fumbling around for stuff. You're not reaching in that bag and looking for those sample boards to find out that you don't have it, right? Mm-hmm. You can have all of those things at your fingertips. You can have financing right there. All of this enables you, if you're coming in with a plan and you've got your checklist and you've got all of your supporting collateral and items all stacked up and you're practiced at it, you can be extremely effective. One thing that I would highly encourage people to do is really think about the environment that they're projecting to the homeowner when they're in a Zoom call too, right? You don't get to just wear the hoodie, right? You should interact with the homeowner with a collared shirt, just like you were standing in front of them, and then you're set. The background behind you, and it should look professional. All those things are gonna build trust.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, with Zoom's technology now, you can just take your company logo and throw it up behind you, and you look super pro, even though your house might be a wreck behind you.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, and I think that's funny. We all love it how people are experimenting with the backgrounds and their head disappears because they lean back. So there's some practice. There's some practice that's required, right?
Yep.
But
thanks, Pierce.
You're welcome.
Okay, so all of your tools can be remote now. You can actually use them. Remote is actually an opportunity for you. And finally, communication is absolutely key to what you're doing and to make it work in a remote environment. Okay, thanks for joining us today on Building Business. Keep on building your business.